Hello everybody and welcome to ZeldaSpeedRuns, broadcasting the Skyward Sword Talk to Yerbal 2021 tournament. This is our first match, even though it says round 2 because of the challenge arrangements. This is Exto versus Jasnix08. Commentating for us, we have KitKat and 64-bit Link. Say hello everybody.
Hey yo, what's up?
Hello everyone.
Yeah, okay, so this is the Talk to Yerbal tournament. Some people might be confused about the category. This category is basically a sort of meme category that was made by 64-bit about a few months ago, I want to say.
Yeah, like maybe a month and a half ago or so.
Yeah, and I think we ended up deducing that this is actually a pretty good race category, and so here's a tournament for that category. It's got 9 runners, and this is the first match: Exto versus Jasnix, and this is definitely gonna be a very interesting matchup, I think.
Yeah, so basically this category is basically the goal of it is to talk to the Kikwi that is at the top of the Great Tree. In a casual playthrough, you would talk to him and he would tell you how to unlock the doors to Lake Floria. And in the speedrun, we've been able to skip him basically since the day the game released. It was figured out how to skip him. And so since there's like no category that talks to him, I was just like, hey, why don't we just have a category where the goal is to talk to him?
Yeah, because any percent skips him because you don't need to even get that far. You just need like the first 2 dungeons and then the neighbor, then you're done. All dungeons skips him because I think all dungeons and No Back in Time skips him because you can do a fence hop in if I want to like skip the requirement of having to go to him, so you can just go to Angel System. And Hundo skips him frankly because of the same reason. I think I'm not that familiar with Hundo. I don't run it.
Yeah, well, I think like basically any category that uses back in time nowadays does a reverse bit warp.
Yeah, but basically all the major category skips talking to Yerbal, and so boom, here's a category about it. So yeah, we're just waiting for the runners to get ready, and yeah, again, I do believe this will be an exciting matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wait for Jasnix to get his stuff ready. I think Exto looks like he's on the title screen, basically roaring to go.
Yep. So yeah, one thing to be noted is Exto is playing on the English version, and it looks like Jasnix will be playing on the Japanese version, and they have slightly different routes for Ancient Cistern, and it'll be kind of clear why we're going into Ancient Cistern like once we get there.
Yeah.
But basically in any percent in like every other category, like English is just always at a huge disadvantage because the text is extremely slow on the English version compared to the Japanese version. However, the US 1.0 version of this game has an exclusive glitch where there is a misaligned seam at the very start of Ancient Cistern that you can do a jump slash through to get out of bounds, and it allows you to skip like 90% of it.
Yeah, so I just want to bring attention. The timer has started and nothing's happened. So I don't know if that was an error or the stream's just really behind, but we'll see. Okay, I think Ricky in the chat saying he like quit out or something. Okay, so well, I mean they started anyway, so I guess we're going.
Yeah, so I guess that's Skyward Sword speedruns that do back in time. The first thing that the runners are going to do is talk to Fledge. That happens to set a bit that will be used much later for accessing Farron in back in time.
Yeah, and you'll see like a lot of like these seemingly random like tasks that we do, like Tortuga Fledge. I don't really think we do much in Yerbal, but I think in 80%, as an example, we save the Remlet and we go in like a random building, and we do all these things that has got like a glitch in it. I don't know if 64-bit explained this, but like Ancient System has a way of clipping through the floor, which basically allows you to like access the basement without doing extra stuff, which we'll see Jasnix do. But first of all, here is Killing Post. It's called Killing Post. We have to die, and it looks like Jasnix is definitely at the lead currently, and he did get Killing Post. That can be kind of finicky, but it's all good, and we'll just see Exto do it right now and see how he fares. And it looks like yeah, there's no problem. It just seems to be me who messes that up. Like everyone else, fine first try, but me, I always like mess up occasionally.
Yeah, no, I've messed it up on plenty of occasions. I always like to say that Killing Post kills either Link or the Ron.
Yeah, it always kills something, yeah.
Although this is a race, so the runners are going to be continuing on regardless of what happens. But both runners appear to have successfully done Killing Post.
Yeah, like no faults from the runners. And again, just kind of we'll talk about the run. So Exto is the 100% world record, and going against Jasnix. Jasnix does a bunch of categories. He's like I think second in No Back in Time. I think I'm just gonna double check that, but yeah, he's second in No Back in Time, and he again does a few other categories. So I do think skill wise, Exto is like a little bit better than Jasnix. So just on like kind of paper, I do think Exto could take this, but who knows? Upsets can happen, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And again, this is Yerbal, and Yerbal is such a great race category that just about anything can happen. So it'll be interesting to see what will happen.
Yeah. Exto is definitely the more experienced runner in this race. But yeah, there's a lot of ways in this category to lose a lot of time. So
especially on the Japanese version. So whilst it is faster, it's much more kind of riskier.
So both runners entering the goddess statue, and so what they're going to be doing is getting the Farron pillar onto their file early. So first they have to get the goddess sword. It's only going to persist through Back in Time, but it's enough to let them strike the crest here. And then they're going to place the Emerald Tablet, and then they're going to start their file at a specific time during the cutscene of the Farron Pillar forming, and that is going to result in the Farron Pillar being placed on their file.
Yeah. Jasnix writing POG on the file. Some people have said to me, you always have to write something on the file. I don't really do that, not because I hate writing things on files, just because I just don't do it. It's not something that I naturally do, but some people do. And Jasnix just wrote POG, because why not? So yeah, Jasnix starting his file at a very specific moment so that the Farron pillar can be on file too. And again, Jasnix is having a slightly... Throughout most of the first half of the run, Jasnix will have a natural lead because of the Japanese text. But during Ancient System, again, because of that sort of seam in the ground where you can clip through and get to the basement easily, we will see Exto kind of get back up, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Also, we have the Monka battery on Exto's side, so hopefully that will not be an issue.
Yeah, he was saying that he's like down to like lost batteries or something, and we'll see if that could be a decider of a race. Who knows? It would be a first. Like batteries running out would be the decider of a run of a race. But yeah, we're gonna get the goddess sword, and then we're gonna just get out because we don't need to like put any tablets into the like kind of we don't need to raise the sort of like my mind's not working like.
Yeah, you don't need to raise the pedestal because we're not going to be placing the ruby or amber tablets in this run. We're basically will be in Farron for basically the entire run.
Yeah,
Not go to any of the other two regions.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, but my brain just stopped working. So yeah, we will be staying in Farron. It's kind of, I guess, a coincidence that like all of the requirements for getting to Yerbal are in Farron. Because we'll just look at the requirements. So like the slingshot, that's basically the first thing you get. The scale, it's the Farron trial. What's the other one? It's like, I mean, there is the Gust Bellows, but we skip that by doing a reverse bit warp into the Great Tree, which is in the ancient, with the coordinates from the Ancient Cistern dungeon, which is a dungeon in Farron. So just about everything's in Farron. So this could basically just be called Farron %, right? Like, you basically do everything in Farron, more or less, except like beat Skyview and you almost beat Ancient Cistern. But yeah.
Yeah.
So coming into the cave, I just want to explain what we're doing on Skyloft. Basically, in order to get off Skyloft, you need to rescue Loftwing, and of course have the ability to dive off of the Loftwing, so that like we can access the Farron pillar. And you can see that Jasnix is taking some damage here. That's because we're going to do back in time again, and back in time you need to be at low health to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jasnix is coming out of the waterfall cave, and the first thing he's going to do is trigger a cutscene, and then after he triggers that cutscene, he's actually going to save and quit his file and copy it, because we want a file that is exactly at this point. For various complicated reasons that I'm not sure we're going to be able to fully explain, but just basically we want a file that's right before rescuing the Loftwing.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of things in this game we're not going to fully explain, so don't try to think about it too much, otherwise your head might explode. Something I just want to point out is that in the cave, Jasnix, when he took damage, he did kind of lose stamina, so that was a small time loss for him, compared to Exto, where he did it flawlessly, so you can kind of see the kind of, that Exto will probably be, like, creeping up as well, at least for now, unless Jasnix can extend that lead. Although this lead is still... Jasnix still has a decent lead for early game. It's like a few tens of seconds.
Yeah. So now, having restarted on his file, Jasnix is gonna rescue his Loftwing, do the Loftwing tutorial normally.
That was a really good cage break. I just want to point out, sorry, that was a really good cage break. Cage break is not something that's too easy to do fast, but I think Jasnix did that flawlessly, and we'll see how Exto does that, so I continue.
Yeah, cage break is non-trivial to do optimally. But yeah, so now just the Loftwing tutorial is basically an auto-scroller. They're basically Jasnix is going to want to flap the wings twice during this text to advance to the second half of it, but other than that, there's no real way to speed it up. And after this, there's going to be the Wing Ceremony cutscene skip, which is the first thing you can lose time on. So he's going to save his file, and then after the saving text goes away, he's going to have two frames to side hop out of the cutscene trigger. And there's no visual or audio cue for it. You just kind of have to either mash it or know the timing.
Yeah, and we're going to see if Jasnix can get this. He saves before, which is what you'd normally do, and we'll see. Oh, it doesn't appear he's got it, yeah. It looks kind of awkward when he doesn't, because Link just kind of stands there. And, well, this time it was kind of funny, because Link had his kind of arm up, which is not supposed to happen. But Jasnix did, unfortunately, not get that. Again, it looks really awkward when you don't get it, because nothing happened.
Yeah, so now Jasnix loses about 75 seconds because he has to run all the way back through Waterfall Cave because for some dumb reasons you can't actually activate back in time inside the Waterfall Cave because that would be too convenient. So he has to run all the way back through. And looks like I believe
Exto failed it as well, so this was an opportunity for Exto to kind of close the gap, because if he would have got it, he would have been much more in the lead, but apparently they're at the exact same points, unless Jasnix dies here, for some reason. Yeah.
Yeah. So now,
I just want to go back with like the cutscene whilst they're both running to kill themselves. Just talk about the cutscene. This cutscene skip. Yeah, most people tend to mash for it. But I think Gymnast and myself, and I think maybe like one or two other people, we often tend to like time it, and it's really kind of based on preference. I just time it because I just find that easier, and it's like there's no kind of like you can't jump back into the cutscene. But yeah, again, it's like mostly preference. Anyway, so Jasnix is now dead.
yeah. So this is probably one of the more complicated back in time. So,
Yeah.
what Jasnix is going to be doing is what's called a file dupe. So he's selecting his blank file here, or his blank hero mode file, and then he's gonna back completely out of the menu, go to this statue, and then save with just the file select open. So that's going to copy all the information from file 3 onto that blank file, but
Yeah.
it's not going to change the respawn point. So now, when he goes and he's going to go and start his file like just as after he mounts his loft wing, and that is going to cause him to load in into the full sky.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like he's going for the safer version. You'd be crazy not to, because failing this is very bad. But anyway, Jasnix goes into the sky again with that sort of lead. Exto just shortly falling behind. And if anyone's wondering, I forgot what I was going to say. I genuinely forgot what I was going to say. What was that? Yeah. Yeah, 64-bit you talk. I forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah, so the whole point of doing that was to get this phi text. This phi text is what gives you the ability to dive off of your loft wing. Or I guess it's one of the two ways, but this is the way that we can actually use for this.
What's happening with Exto?
Yeah.
I am very confused.
Did Exto fail?
I think he failed it. I
Yeah.
think he failed it, which would be a big oof. So I don't think you can actually come back from this. This is interesting. This wasn't meant to happen. Exo, I've no idea what to do. Yeah, we don't either. Please help. Okay, I think Exo, you might have to. Okay, well, some people are saying there's a backup. I don't personally know the backup, so don't take any advice from me. If you can hear me, just don't. But yeah, you can do the backup, and hopefully the backup will work. Yeah, this will extend Jasnix's lead by quite a lot here.
Yeah, but basically the issue is to load into the sky the way that we do for this. You either need to be in this blank hero mode file state or saved at a save prompt, because that changes basically the way that the reverse bit warp happens, and thus you wind up spawning in at the beginning of the sky. So yeah, unfortunately what Exo is trying to do here isn't going to work because he already placed the tablet. If he actually, like, I'm not sure what the backup is at this point.
I think the backup is to do it in back in time.
Yeah, you'd have to do it in back in time, like go into the goddess statue literally without ever selecting a file, and then that might be able to work.
Yeah, but no, this does like increase Jasnix's lead significantly, so this is going to be hard for Exo to come back from this. Assuming he gets out of this situation quickly, yeah, this could be a win for Jasnix. This could be like insane.
Yeah, that's highly unfortunate.
We're 15 minutes. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, meanwhile, while we've been focusing on Exto trying to recover from that mistake, Jasnix got that text, rescued the Loftwing again on his other file, and then he damaged himself on a zipper as he dove into the Farron pillar. I will talk about that a little bit more during this particular back in time.
Yeah. But this is, I believe, quite a confusing. I think all the back in times is confusing. So if you're not very familiar with this game, just don't, just look away now. No, but yeah. But just on a tournament note, we're literally 17 minutes in, and we've got our first sort of like upset, if you could call it that, where like Exto is in a very sticky situation. But I'll let 64-bit explain what's happening on Jasnix's screen currently.
Yeah, so Jasnix saved a file with the Loftwing rescued back in time, and then he's using that to load into the sky, and now he's going to get a little bit of height and then dive off his Loftwing. And that allows him to escape the boundaries of the Loftwing tutorial, because normally there's a bunch of invisible walls around the Loftwing tutorial that prevent you from leaving that area. But when you dive off your Loftwing, those invisible walls basically cease to exist. And so now Jasnix is able to dive into the Farron pillar.
Yeah. And the fact that Back in Time doesn't crash in Farron is just a miracle. Like, Back in Time crashes more or less everywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing that like all the stuff that we can do in Back in Time manages to work. So
yeah.
Okay, Jasnix is going for a log jump here with a specific setup. You can skip a cutscene that normally happens when you push the log all the way by doing a very specific jump off of that log. And so now
he's got a fight text. This is weird because there should be a cutscene, but apparently not. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so Jasnix is going to save 2 of his files here. And basically, he has 1 file that he wants saved at this statue for later. So all he's going to do is start it and save and quit, which looks weird, but is actually very important. And then he's going to start file 1, which he's going to play on for the next like 20 minutes or so. And now he's in Farron, ready to get the slingshot, ready to basically do Skyward Sword first cycle, as some of us like to call it.
Yeah. And I think Exto's screen is just, again, just trying to recover from this huge mistake. But yeah, now we are basically in the heart of Farron, where we will basically stay for all of the run, actually. And now we basically get to hunt Kikwees. So just run around and stuff. That's basically it, just running around. So this definitely will test the runner's movement ability, because a lot of this is heavily movement-based. Yeah, although this might look over with Exto having a really bad situation. You do have to remember that, like, Yerbal as a category is incredibly unpredictable, so even though it looks like Jasnix has this in the bag, I think anything can happen at this point. It'll really depend.
Yeah, there's like 1 or 2 more points for Jasnix where he could lose a ton of time if he were to make a mistake.
Yeah. Like, people are saying Jasnix is too far ahead. He is very far ahead, but I don't think you guys understand how easy it is to lose time in this category. How easy it is to lose so much time. But yeah. So we basically got yeah, Jasnix hunting Kikwees and Exto recovering from a huge mistake.
Yeah, so Jasnix did the one big, I guess, skip in this slingshot segment where you can bonk down the vine that in Farron, near the Kikwi Elder, and that allows skipping a ton of movement that you would otherwise have to do to work your way around this area. So it's done in every category that does slingshot.
Yeah, and people are saying deaths in Angel, it's really easy to die in Angel, especially on Japanese. With this, it's got its incredibly difficult break slide, which we'll see when Jasnix get to it. And we'll also see, basically, as we'll basically only have one heart for the remainder of Angel, and just about anything will kill him instantly. And dying is really bad. So yeah.
Yeah, so I guess one other thing we haven't talked a whole lot about is stamina management. So there's this little lime thing next to Link that is the stamina meter, and that basically if you run out your stamina meter, then Link gets tired for 5 seconds or so, and that is really, really slow. But there's a lot of tricks to managing stamina properly. The biggest one is that generally you always want to stay in the last quarter of the stamina meter because it depletes at half the rate of the rest of it. So Jasnix attempting a trick called Lopsa Roll there and failing it. It's frame perfect. Not a lot of runners go for it.
I think
because
the only person in recent memory who's got it is Tado. He got it once, but it's frame perfect. There's nothing. There's no visual or audio cue, so you just kind of have to go for it and hope. So we did see Jasnix fight a few bokoblins. He didn't really do that as cleanly as possible, and I think Exto's finally got out of his self-digging hole, so he's going to be basically racing to see if he can catch up, although Jasnix does have a huge lead. Again, this is Yerbal. It's really unpredictable and anything can happen. The race is not over yet.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then the other thing with stamina management is, in general, you want to deplete your stamina going into cutscenes or certain other things will refill your stamina meter. So you want to just deplete it when you're going to get a free refill to maximize the usage of your stamina. Basically, maximizing the usage of your stamina meter is basically the difference between a top tier and a mid tier runner of this game.
Yeah. As a top tier runner, not saying that to brag, I'm just saying that as a fact. As a top tier runner, I can definitely say that movement is one of the number one. It's basically the number one part of this run, basically. So I think if you can definitely master movement, assuming you're not completely terrible at everything else, you are at least a mid tier runner. If anything, kind of in the bracket between mid and top. So I think anyone wanting to improve at this game, the one advice I could give to anyone is to just improve your movement. And yeah.
So Jasnix rescuing the last of the Kikwis, named Ulo. And so then he'll be ready to just head off and get the slingshot.
Yeah, this is quite a lot of kind of running around just for one item. And just about every category except 80% has to do this. And the reason why is because Slingshot actually opens up the B-Wheel item. And in Hundo, No Back in Time, and all dungeons, we need some B-Wheel items, which requires getting a Slingshot, which requires going on this massive kick. The reason why we don't need to get a Slingshot in 80% is because we don't actually need any B-Wheel items. And for Yerbal percent, for this category specifically, we just need the Slingshot. The other item we could get opposed to the Slingshot is the Beetle, but then we'd have to get the Slingshot anyway. to get the beetle, because again, it's a be real item, so kind of defeats the purpose in some way. Anyway, so now Jasnix will be Jasnix is talking to the Master of Camouflage, and he'll get a slingshot 27 minutes in, which I think is not a bad time. I think, at least compared to Exto. Alright, so slingshot, and again, the requirements for this are basically slingshot, the scale, and that's about it. There were like other requirements, like having to get to the having to get to the boss door in Ancient System for the because you there it worked because in order to get to like the to Yerbal in the Great Tree, we'll do a reverse build up into it, and the coordinates, the correct coordinates are from Ancient System and that like the boss door area. I probably explained that horribly, but you'll see when we get to it.
Okay, so Jasnix is about to head into Deep Woods, where the next big thing that you can gain or lose a lot of time on is going to be coming up, and unfortunately, this one is going to be RNG. So there's a trick called Extending Blow, where if you do a final blow on an enemy and that enemy disappears just as you do it, the game basically loses the information on where that enemy is, and you just get flung towards the origin of the map, which in the case for this map happens to be right in front of Skyview, which is right where we want to go. So we'll see. The problem is the knockback distance of the Bokoblin is RNG, so we'll see if Jasnix can get this. And unfortunately, unfortunately did not get the correct knockback distance. So the backup for this is a trick called Cube Warp. So there's another Bokoblin back here. Jasnix is going to be luring that Bokoblin into a specific position and then using it to angle a skyward strike upwards to hit the cube.
Yeah. And I just want to bring attention to something that someone said in chat. Can you play the whole game without the green tunic? The answer to that is yes. You can beat the game with just Skyloft clothes. I don't think any category actually does that because it's slower to like do it this way. I think 80% used to do it for like a few days when it was like when early boss rush was getting developed. But technically, yes, you can beat this game without getting the hero's tunic.
Yeah, actually, I think the new Elden extending below any percent route will actually also beat the game without the tunic, just because I think it just happens to work out better for that route, which is an absolutely insane and crazy route that I think will be only something that like the top tier runners will go for.
Yeah.
But it's but it is a thing that
Oh yeah, and of course the low percent does skip the tunic because so we see Jasnix entering Skyview and Exto just starting the kick request. So again, that gap is very big, but there's still kind of a lot of time, especially if Jasnix were to like mess up Ancient System, because it's very easy to do on Japanese. So we can definitely see Exto make a comeback. It would be a huge comeback, but it can happen. The race is nowhere near over.
Yeah, so Jasnix is now, he entered Skyview and just immediately left Skyview. And there was a reason for that. So one of the flags that gets set when you, as part of entering Skyview, is a flag that will let us open up the Thunderhead early. So you see Jasnix run into that enemy and basically is going to activate back in time off of that. And now, for various reasons, as soon as he selects file 1, it's going to queue up the Thunderhead opening cutscene. And then he's going to start one of his other files just before that cutscene plays. And now the Thunderhead is open on file 2, and that's the file that he saved in Farron earlier. And now he's gonna go ahead and fly out of there,
Yeah.
and the Thunderhead's gonna be open. Uh, he's also going to get the same phi text here that he got earlier, because this file was from before he did any of the Loftwing rescuing stuff, which is actually pretty important because for various complicated reasons, that it like this is if you have a file without the tunic, you can load into the sky properly, but only by flying out of a pillar.
Yeah, and it's very important that Jasnix does not hit a tornado, because the first time he'll just die if he does, and just get sent back to Fanpro, which is still bad, it loses time. But if he gets hit a second time, he'll actually be soft locked, and I think he'll definitely have to do the back in time again, I want to say, as you couldn't really save. I think. Oh yeah, someone messaged Exto got like the glitch stamina meter, where it's just red. Even though it's fully charged. That can happen if you roll away from a cutscene frame perfectly. Just a neat little visual thing.
Yeah, and it means that, like, if you get that, it means you're playing well, because you're basically getting a first frame roll out of the cutscene.
Yeah.
So now what Jasnix is doing is he's going to get Furorious Courage, which is the first of the trial songs. And basically, in order to enter the Farron trial, you need to have Furorious Courage learned. Otherwise, that trial gate just will never spawn.
Yeah, this is kind of why we go to the Thunderhead in the first place, is to get this specific item.
And so, yeah, Jasnix is solving this puzzle to get into the Thunderhead. Exto, meanwhile, making more progress, has just rescued Lopsa, so
Yeah.
not entirely out of it yet.
It does seem that like the gap between Jasnix and Exto isn't really widening, because even though Exto is a like kind of more skilled player, I do think Jasnix is definitely kind of holding his ground and keeping that lead, which is going to definitely be very interesting to see when we get to Age of System, like the hardest parts of the Japanese route. I mean, someone mentioned in the chat, Extra saved a few seconds. Yeah, but I do still think that Jasnix is definitely keeping his lead. Yeah.
Yep. So now, oh no, so Exto didn't slash enough of the grass, so then Erla started moving. So ideally with that, you can do 2 Skyward Strikes and basically remove half the grass with each of them, and only uncover Erla with the second one, and then Erla won't move, and yeah, that saves a lot of time, but unfortunately Exto didn't quite get that.
Yeah. So now Jasnix is doing the Farron trial RBW. This is definitely a really good test of like kind of not really memorization, especially if you have the route up, but it's also a really good test of like doing really kind of complex back in times, because this is a very complex back in time. It's arguably one of the biggest ones in the game. I don't think it is the biggest one, because it's probably one like 100 that I'm not aware of. But it's definitely up there with one of them. Like you'll see like a lot of very important things happening very quickly, and if you're not experienced in watching Skyward Sword speedrunning, you'll probably miss like half of the important things. And again, just try, if it looks like it's really confusing happening, just again try not to think about it too much. It'll probably explode your brain.
Yeah, so Jasnix is going to be again diving into the Farron Pillar. Diving is another skill that's like really crucial. So this, I don't think we've really mentioned it, even though it's been like a factor for the entire run, is that Skyward Sword relies heavily on motion controls, and diving is one of those things. And literally every single movement of the Wii Remote like affects diving in some way. So diving is one of those things that's just has that like you can gain or lose a ton of time with.
Yeah. Alright, so Exto just getting the slingshot. Again, just closing the gap with Jasnix slightly. Because it's English text, he does have a small disadvantage, but English definitely shines when it comes to ancient system, where Exto will gain a lot of time, I assume. But yeah, Jasnix again doing this sort of like really intensely complex back in time. And by the end of this, he should at some point be around at like the Farron trial, if he does this correct. Failing this at a late enough stage, I think is really bad. I think it means run over, I think, or at least unless there's like a really like and this is like a setup which I'm not aware of. It could probably be like run over.
So yeah, basically for this RBW so first of all, right here is an interesting thing. So as soon as Jasnik spawned into the main Farron Woods area, he got teleported into this cutscene, which skips about half of going into the Farron Woods area, and it's really convenient that that happens to work out for this route just because of the way our files are.
Yeah,
but basically what we need to do is we need to reload this area with Feroria's Courage, that with basically having that story flag and also having another flag set that actually is the trial gate being spawned, because we don't actually have the harp to spawn the trial normally. So now that he's done that, he is actually going to run over to a Bokoblin and let the Bokoblin kill him to reload the area.
Yeah, and also Exto not getting extending blow, so he doesn't save time over Jasnix. I'm not 100% confident this will work because Jasnix didn't actually select file 2 during the file 1 saving, which is what you're meant to do. I don't know if that actually affects anything, but we'll see. Oh, we might be messing up the copying, although I think you can do this later, so it's not a huge issue. Maybe. This is Monka-esque. I agree. This is definitely very Monka-esque. Also doing the 1 frame copying because, you know, why not?
Yeah, so...
Just please copy file 1 to file 3. Please, yeah. And don't crash the console. Okay, yeah. It looks like we're doing okay. Just now I'm hoping he starts the file at the right time. Okay, that should be good. It might be a little bit on the other side, but yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking about this 1 frame copy. Okay, and that was good. So yeah. Jasnix has spawned into the trial, and so the one thing is that he's going to need to get caught once by a watcher to properly load the trial. Or I mean, it's not even technically still properly loaded, but basically, if you don't get caught at least once, then at the end of the trial, you'll just get soft locks for some reason. Yeah. So it's very important that you do get caught once. On the other hand, he did not want to step in that waking water. So because of the fact that we reverse bit warped into this trial, like the trial doesn't quite work properly, and now Jasnix has to do a 1 frame side hopper backflip out, basically in between each instance of this cutscene. He gets a frame to, and okay, took him a while, but he managed to get it. Yeah, it's.
He just went back into the waking water. He was like, "Nah, I got too big a lead. I'll just give Exto a bit more time to, like, you know, do stuff." And yeah. But yeah, Jasnix looking like he's doing quite good. And Exto, I believe Exto is either on the early Thunderhead back in time or the Farron trial. I think it's the early Thunderhead. Unless he's just really quick and I'm not noticing him.
Yeah. But I do want to touch on the one frame copy that was mentioned earlier. So, in Back in Time, both the copy button and the map button are mapped to plus, and if you press the plus button when you have control of Link, it opens the map, and in Back in Time, opening the map always crashes. However, it happens that it takes 2 frames to open the map, so if you only have the plus button pressed for a single frame, it will allow you to initiate a copy without opening the map. And so it's a very risky strap, but can save a ton of time if you are able to do it.
Yeah. Alright, so Jasnix just finished up. Oh, and he just grabs a life root just at the end. Because why not?
Yeah, so in this category, because you only do one trial, you want to avoid light fruits because the first light fruit you pick up will play that cutscene. In some other categories that do multiple trials, you'll often intentionally pick up one light fruit to get a stamina refill off of the cutscene, but since we only do one trial here, ideally you don't collect any, and so yeah, Jasnix just accidentally stepping into one at the very end of the trial.
Yeah. Kind of unfortunate because you make it all the way to the end and then that happens.
Yeah, but we also get this funny animation here where, because of the way that the trial loaded, Link pulls out the water dragon scale basically out of his chest. So the water dragon scale was inside us all along.
Yeah. Someone asked in chat, why did one tier show empty? That's just because of loading issues and stuff. Because Jasnix he basically collected two tiers, and then he got caught. And it's like, for example, if he were to get caught later after say like 5 tiers, excluding the first one, all of them would be invisible because it just wouldn't load it or something. So now here's the first kind of difference between English and Japanese. Jasnix says you can go back to Skyview because Skyview has the appropriate coordinates of how we want to get into H system. And we mentioned a few times that H system has this sort of like seam where runners can clip in. This is only in the English 1.0 version. This is not in the Japanese version, and Japanese is like still faster because of the text. But because of this, you have to enter the basement via a different way, and you do that via the Skyview coordinates. Which
so the very first statue in Skyview, it happens to load you an ancient cistern into one of the pools of purple Kool-Aid that are in the basement.
Well, is it officially named Kool-Aid now? Yeah.
At least that's what I've always called it.
I think it's officially called cursed water, but we can call it Kool-Aid if you want. You know, why not?
Yeah, so Jasnix is doing a death warp so that he respawns with full hearts. Or, well, you respawn with 6, which is full for here, because he is going to need all 6 of those hearts to be able to get out of that purple Kool-Aid. And it is extremely difficult to do on 6 hearts, but it is possible.
Yeah, it requires like I think two to three really precise break slides, and messing up, especially the end ones, can be devastating. And messing this up puts you back 4 minutes.
Yeah. So basically, you wind up if Jasnix fails this, he has to redo the entire reverse bit warp, has to redo everything he's doing right now in this Back in Time.
Yeah, and as in a race setting, even though Exto is really behind, failing this a few times could put them together, like basically back together, because this is hard. And also, Exto does not have to do this because Exto has the English version. So he is able to just get to the basement via the system clip, which is English NTSC 1.0 exclusive. So this is kind of between versions. There's kind of like risk reward where Japanese is faster but it's harder, and English is technically slower but it's much easier. So most runners just go with the version they go with. So for example, take me. I don't have English NTSC 1.0. I have English PAL 1.0, which doesn't have system clip, but I do have a Japanese version, and that's the thing that I personally use. And people, I think, like Exto have a choice between English and Japanese. So yeah.
And yeah, like English is much easier, and so the time difference between the languages, I think it was timed to be 30 seconds that Japanese saves over English, and just because of how it's like this is probably the one category where English and Japanese are the closest.
Yeah, because in most categories it's fairly obvious the way Japanese wins, but because of system clip, English is like much closer. It's still only behind.
Yeah, and it's not just the fact that it's sister and clip, but sister and clip versus not quite as much text as you'd have in other categories. There's still a ton of text, but like a lot of other categories do much more of the game and wind up watching many more cutscenes that add a lot of text. So
Jasnix is now coming towards the end of this reverse warp, and at the end will be basically the test of the brake slide. This is an incredibly hard brake slide. That's a JP. It's not really JP exclusive, but it's JP exclusive because system clip is English exclusive. So this will be very interesting. First of all, he needs to get the RBW correct, and second of all, we'll see if he actually gets these brake slides. If he doesn't, he'll have to do this entirely again, which will make Exto be able to catch up much more. But this is we'll see. Can Jasnix do this under pressure? Can he keep his lead? This is looking good so far. And oh no, just ended. That last brake slide just wasn't close enough, and thus he died and has to do the whole thing again, which loses him 4 minutes, which means Exto has more time to catch up. Yeah, not the Kool-Aid or whatever. Yeah. It's like, again, this is a very, very difficult brake slide. Especially those ending ones. It can be really punishing if you don't get it. And it's incredibly hard to do under pressure.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm pretty sure Jasnix would like this is a thing that Jasnix has been practicing a lot, and it's very difficult to do fully correctly, and it's so yeah.
So Jasnix will have to do this again, and he will get another chance. Again, if he fails it again, he'll have to do the RBW again. So yeah. Yeah, and as Threy is saying, that like brake sliding is made especially difficult by the fact that when you're under pressure, your hands will shake, and doing that and trying to hold the ESS position is incredibly hard. So this is definitely a really good test under pressure. Like, can the runners like perform under pressure? Because if they can, they should have no problem with this, or not as much problem with this as someone who is like has really shaky hands and is unable to like do the correct brake sliding.
Yeah, so Exto is in the Farron trial right now, so yeah, the gap has definitely closed a little bit with Jasnix unfortunately missing the brake slide once. Yeah, if you're rooting for Exto, you probably are then you probably want Jasnix to fail this a couple more times, but
Yeah.
if I guide like I mean, as
If
a
you're rooting for
commentator, I
Jasnix,
have to
then
stay neutral.
I guess we are definitely neutral commentators. Go Jasnix! I didn't say that. No, but a bit seriously, I don't really care. Someone else, ESS, do we have super slides? Kind of. In Skyward Sword, you have brake slides, which is only really used in RTA in like sand and stuff. Like sand and Kool-Aid, as it's called by the cool kids. Basically, it just like it works in a very similar way to super sliding in other games, I think, in which Link just kind of you hold the SS down after either a roll or a home menu buffer, and Link just goes speed, and it's the only real way of getting out of that.
Yeah, and again, the reason why it's so important is just because we don't get any heart containers in this run. So you take 4 hearts of fall damage immediately, and then you take also an additional heart of damage, basically guaranteed, from the purple Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so Jasnix has his second attempt at the brake slides. Let's see if he can not lose any more time. This is always that last one, and he does it this time. He does it this time. Okay, so he doesn't fail it a second time. This is good. So yeah, but this has definitely shortened the lead by Exto by quite a bit. So Exto can definitely catch up, especially as he's not English and he'll have a much easier and faster time with Ancient System. Because Jasnix doesn't have System Clip, he won't also have an easy way of getting the whip, so he'll also have to get the small key, which will take time. And as people are saying, he can still die in System. Like after those slides, you're not just inevitable; you can still die. And if you don't save, I say like, good job. Like it's kind of nerve-wracking to not save, especially in a race, because saving is you kind of have to.
Also, to explain what Jasnix just did, he did a trick called the high flip, where if you backflip on a specific frame after a side hop, when you're up against something, it causes Link's backflip to be much higher than normal, which allowed him to backflip onto the statue's foot, and thus he was able to climb up some of the out-of-bounds collision to get up to this rope, allowing him to climb to the main area of Cistern. And then this is like, if I were Jasnix, I would immediately safety save here, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Decides not to.
Although there are definitely other places where people often tend to save. Like, for example, here. I think he's going to save. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, saving at this statue. So, okay. So now, if he were to die, he will respawn at that statue and will not have to do the RBW again.
Yeah. And it would still lose time, but it wouldn't lose as much time. So, just gonna... Is he gonna die? No. Okay, cool. That Jelly Blob is gonna basically spare him. So basically, we also have Exto now doing the RBW. And notice how he only had to go to the viewing platform instead of having to go to like the full sky view. That's because Exto will be using different coordinates as he's on English, and it's just yeah.
Yeah. So basically, Exto he saved his main file at the bazaar, and that will load him in back in time, and that's going to load him into the main area of Ancient Cistern, as opposed to the basement. And because from there he can do the trick known as Cistern Clip, which we can explain a bit more when he gets there.
Yeah.
And Jasnix getting through that tunnel fine. That tunnel can also be a little bit scary. I mean, it's not that difficult, but if you miss one of those one of those spins into the boards, like you run out of air very quickly, and it is definitely possible to die in that tunnel. Because in hero mode, basically the amount of air you have is halved.
Yeah.
So now that Jasnix got that small key, he's going to be heading to get the whip. And so he's going to have, because the statue is raised, he's going to be doing some specific jumps to get there. He's aligning himself with the center of the door.
Yeah.
And so doing some specific jumps, he's going to be able to hop down one level. And from there, he can open the door to the whip room. And it's not going to look locked, but the door's locked on the other side because that is how you're normally meant. Oh no.
He went the wrong way. He went left instead of right, which I think is why he was having a problem in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, good luck fighting this guy with one heart. Didn't take damage there, surprisingly. So Exto's done the RBW. Notice how he didn't actually spawn in the basement, and yeah, he did. Cool. Notice how Exto didn't actually spawn in the basement. Now he's going to be doing System Clip, which is English exclusive. So if Jasnix could do this on Japanese, of course he would. But this is actually patched in all other versions except NTSC 1.0.
Yeah. So the first death that he took when he clipped was intentional. It's because he needed to refill, and now he has to carefully maneuver himself around the out of bounds collision, which is actually somewhat difficult. And now he has to do a somewhat difficult dive here.
He's kind of lining himself up for it as well. Yeah. Understandable.
Yeah, so he wants to basically swim up to the statue's foot, and once he gets to a specific place, it's going to load in the whip room. And from there, he's going to be able to get the whip.
Yeah, and it looks like Exo is definitely catching up, considering that Ancient System is where you gain the most time in English because of the text. Like, the text is so slow. The Ancient System is so much faster in English because of the system clip.
Yeah. I mean, Jasnix still has a lead, but that lead has significantly shrunk.
Yeah, especially it's shrunk dramatically. Yeah.
The last RBW is not. It's not hard, but it's not trivial either. So
yeah, if you're not paying attention, you can easily fail it, I'd say.
Yeah, it's very. So basically, for the last reverse bit warp, you basically need to start your file as you swim into the loading zone at the bottom of the great tree, and it is very easy to accidentally bonk when you're doing that. And if you bonk when you're doing that, you basically have to redo the entire thing. So this race is not over yet.
Yeah, that's the thing with Yerbal. It's like it's basically never over until you hit. Because even at that kind of sprint to the finish where you try to tag Yerbal first, you can still miss all your shots, even though it's unlikely. It can still happen. So nothing is really declared until the final. But this is definitely shaping up to be a lot more closer than a lot of people would say. But now Exto just getting the boss key, and Jasnix just doing the final reverse bit warp. Yeah, and there's people saying Exto is making the comeback of a lifetime here. Like he had a huge mishap at the beginning, but has somehow managed to shrunk that lead or shrunk Jasnix's lead, to the point where, this is in part due to Jasnix messing up the Ancient System. I'll start the sentence again. This is in part due to Jasnix messing up the Ancient System RBW first. But either way, Exto and Jasnix are fairly close now.
So yeah, Exto is heading up to the boss door now, and having gotten the boss key, Jasnix is back in time for the last time to do the reverse bit warp to the top of the Great Tree. And basically, it's this last reverse bit warp that is the reason we can talk to Yerbal without like needing any other items.
Yeah, because
because
normally you need the
without-
Gust Bellows, but we can just do this.
Yeah, or the claw shots, because you
Yes.
could. Because the very first, like, when I first kind of like thought of this category, like I did kind of the obvious thing and just got claw shots and used claw shots to get myself up to the top of the Great Tree.
Yeah,
And then
that would be
there's
faster.
and then a glitch hunter in this game and other Zelda games named Azer figured out that
It
the
was Azer, no
statue
surprise.
coordinates here happen to work to spawn you near the top of the Great Tree, and that cut a huge amount of time off of this category and arguably made this category way more interesting.
Yeah, like it's like who would have guessed an RBW existed here? Apparently it does. Yeah. So yeah, these RBWs, the last ones are especially kind of very similar. Obviously, when you get to Farron, they kind of converge into what they actually are. This one being going into the Great Tree, and again, this isn't necessarily hard, but it's kind of hard if you mess it up, of course.
Yeah, so basically you kind of have to line yourself up so that when you do a spin, you will spin into the loading zone.
Yeah.
So you'll see kind of up here. So first, Jasnix is shooting a slingshot seed to update his seed count. That loads in the water dragon scale from his file. So now he can swim, line himself up.
Yeah.
And once he's confident he's lined up, start his file.
Ooh, that looked sketchy. That looked real sketchy. Is he going to do it?
Yep.
Oh, barely. And he doesn't get the void out, but he does do it. And he could win this. It's just the final sprint to the finish, and he's advanced to basically the kind of the Group A winner bracket finals, as you'd call them.
Yeah.
Yeah, as people saying that was sketch. Like that, I'm pretty sure a little bit earlier, and he would have been done for. Exto would have probably won. But yeah, this is definitely. I think Jasnix has this unless he does something really weird. Like Jasnix has got to have this right now. Mrs. Yerbal for the next 2 minutes, yeah. And Jasnix finishes with what I believe is 105. He does need to stop the timer on the race time. Someone should probably notify him that. If he doesn't stop the clock, then technically Exto wins because that's how the race rules are set. Okay, he finished. Okay, yeah. So Jasnix moves on to round 3 winners bracket in Group A, and Exto is in because this format is sort of slightly different. Don't tell me. Yeah, it's actually groups in double elimination. So basically, what this means, this was winners bracket round 2 for Group A. Now Jasnix moves on to round 3 in winners bracket, and Exto moves down to losers round 2 in.
Yeah, I just want to point out that Exto got the void out that KitKat was talking about earlier. So basically, if you save it, where you spawn in kind of depends on your position, and if you get your position right, you will void out initially and not take any damage, and then the game will try to correct you and put you onto the nearby collision, and thus he got put onto the upper platform where he needed to be without taking any damage.
Yeah, so this is definitely not the result any of us expected. I'm pretty sure most people going into this expected Exto to take the dub here. But unfortunately, he just made that huge mistake at the start, which allowed Jasnix to win, basically.
But I mean, it's still
And
impressive.
Exto finishes.
Yep. GG to both runners. And I think it's still impressive that despite that huge mistake at the very beginning, that the difference wound up being only 2 minutes. And I mean, granted, Jasnix also made a huge mistake later on, but I'd argue that that mistake at the beginning of failing the Sky RBW is a far more catastrophic mistake, because like in most PB attempts, if you fail that, you just instantly reset. So you don't really think about how you repair that.
Yeah. Well, GG to the runners. I believe we have Exto here. That was quite the comeback from what we could comfortably say was a really rough start.
Yeah, I golded every single split except for surface.
Nice.
But yeah, you know, going for the risky. Well, it's really not that risky, you know, but messing it up was the mistake.
It's risky enough really. To fail it, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Jasnix just had a solid run, and that was enough to beat the huge mistake at the beginning, followed by a pretty solid run.
Yeah. But no, the rest of the run did look very solid. It was just that, like, that huge mistake at the beginning, it just wasn't, and it just, like, the rest of the time save you made up just didn't make up for it. And I think Jasnix actually failed the brake sliding in Ancient System once. If he failed it twice, I'm pretty sure that Exto, you would have probably taken the win here.
I think if I knew what to do, I would have been able, because the issue was that I failed it, and I was like, "Hey, Jasnix, do you know the backup?" and so Jasnix and I were talking about it. We're trying to figure out like exactly how the backup works and stuff.
I mean, you did better than I would do. I would just have reset and just tried again, because like I would just panic in that situation.
Yeah, Ricky. By the way, Jasnix doesn't have the role to get into this chat.
Okay. You can just wait room, and we can just drag him in, I guess.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
All right, awesome. But yeah, GG Jasnix.
Yeah, absolutely insane. So now, Exto, you are now moved to the losers round 2, where you'll be against the loser of Threy versus Muzu. How do you feel being one elimination away from being out of this tournament this early on?
I feel like I have a decent chance at coming back. I feel like I'm pretty consistent at most stuff, and decently quick. So I don't think there's no hope, but I'd be lying if I said there was a significant amount of hope.
Yeah, and so I believe we can now welcome in Jasnix, who won this match. GG, I must say.
Congrats.
That was a run, I'll say. I didn't beat my PB, but it was kind of a mess. Movement was really sloppy. I don't know. It wasn't a great day, but then I failed the RBW into AC. That was a huge mess.
Yeah. It was just, I think it was just a last break slide. But when it comes to races, it's not about being good. It's about being better than your opponent, and you achieved that.
You definitely achieved something.
Yeah, and so that puts you onto round 3, which is essentially the Group A winners bracket finals. And if you win that, you go into the single elimination stage. So how do you kind of feel being like in this situation?
I feel like I need to practice significantly more.
Yeah.
I wasn't very confident at all today. I thought I was gonna get destroyed by Exto, to be honest. But
I think most people were thinking, including most people were thinking that like Exto would kind of take that. But in a surprising upset, if you call it, Jasnix, you've taken the win here.
Yeah, I call it an upset. I wasn't even expecting it. It was a good win.
Yeah. Right, absolutely. So that was that. I've got nothing else to say. If any of the other guys have anything else to say, that'd be cool. Other than that, yeah, yeet.
Okay, I'll go ahead and take over here then. Exto and Jasnix, thank you so much for the race. That was awesome to watch. Thank you to 64-Bit Link and KitKut for the commentary. Coming up with this tournament on January 2nd, we have Tato versus 64-Bit Link. And on the 9th of January, we have Theralad and Muzu, and also CJS and Deesh. So look forward to those matches coming up later on this week. As for Zelda Speedruns, we're actually done for the day, but tomorrow, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Trez is going to be doing a sub-goal reward. It's Johnny versus Trez in a Spirit Tracks 80% blind race. Not blindfolded, just blind. They haven't done it before, so it's going to be a lot of mayhem and a lot of making fun of them. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Also tomorrow at 1:50 p.m. we have the Wind Waker Randomizer Spoiler Log Tournament. Top 16 for the lower bracket, which is CS versus Lenamphi. And at 11 p.m. tomorrow night, we have the Breath of the Wild 80% Tournament lower bracket finals between Sly Zora and Player 5. So tomorrow's going to be a really good day for CSR. Hope you all find something you want to watch. And with that, we're going to close it off here. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you had a fantastic time and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!
See you guys.
Thanks, Ricky.